Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show. And from a conversation with David Chilton to a conversation with two of my favorite guests here on the Ben Mulroney Show, it's Friday, which means it's time for the Friday edition of This Week in Politics. Please welcome Warren Kinsella and Chris Chapin, as always. Guys, welcome.
Howdy. Great to be here.
Warren, I want to start with you because this time last week, we were talking about an event that I was at where Olivia Chow was not invited because it was a celebration of allies of the Jewish community, and you said it was a bad idea. You talked to your enemies. And then she went last weekend and declared that there had been a genocide in Gaza. And I personally believe, it's one man's opinion, that you can draw a line from those words to the feeling of empowerment in the mob that decided to attack Toronto Metropolitan University students. And I wonder what you make of that entire dynamic.
Well, I agree with you. There is a causal connection between leadership and reality. That's why the three of us have been involved with politics in our lives, is we believe that there's a connection between how a leader conducts him or herself and the things that they do and the money that they spend, the votes that they make. There's a connection between that and what happens in the real world. And in the case of Chow, she advocated in front of the NCCM, which is the leading Muslim organization in this country. She advocated that Jews commit mass murder. And 2 days later, there was a Kristallnacht type attack at TMU. And Kristallnacht, for those who are unfamiliar with it, and regrettably these days I think many people are, just about 90 years ago this week, there was a 2-day program against Jews that principally involved attacks on Jews, blood spilled, and glass shattered. So Kristallnacht, the shattering of glass. And it's happening again, like right here, right in the wake of Olivia Chow's statements. The reason why I favor inviting people like Olivia Chow to Jewish events is to put her feet to the fire.
Yep.
To challenge her, to not let her get off the hook, because by not inviting her, she has an excuse to stay away.
Yeah.
I favor sticking them right in the limelight and challenging them and saying, how dare you? How dare you say that? And look what happened next. But instead, they let her off the hook. And I think that was a mistake.
Chris Chapin, what sort of conversations do you think are happening at City Hall? What sort of conversations are happening about this very conversation, this very topic of a causal relationship between the mayor saying something that, in my opinion, not my opinion, it's factually incorrect, and a rise in tension and violence on the streets of Toronto?
Nothing, Ben. I honestly, have you seen any semblance of or sign that anything's changed at City Hall? I mean, certainly not.
I saw that on November 15th in the city of Toronto, there's going to be a flag raising for the flag of the state of Palestine. I saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Mississauga as well.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, to answer your question, nothing. Worse than nothing, I guess you could argue. It's the only thing I'd challenge Warren. I get where he's coming from completely on having Olivia there and putting her feet to the fire, but she wasn't going to show up if you invited her anyway. She's been invited to these events. She's baked in her position. And sadly, you're right. It's why we all got involved in politics to some extent, because we believe that leaders can and should lead us through difficult times.
I was drafted. Nobody told me.
You didn't.
Nobody told me that I had to leave my nice house in Montreal and I had to live with the asbestos in 24 Sussex. That was not part of the bargain. Anyway, I interrupted you.
You can go back. I think there's some people that wouldn't mind if you went back. Okay. I mean, maybe not to the asbestos-filled house. I think just that's the reality, man. There's no discussion going on. There's the exact opposite going on at City Hall, and it's unfortunate. But there's a few vocal opponents at City Hall. But the truth is, within that mayor's office, I think there's absolutely no discussion about this whatsoever. It's been rinse and repeat. It's only been one side of the equation that we see these attacks in the city of Toronto. And there's frankly what frustrates me the most is that there's no accountability. There never seems to be any sort of accountability from the NCCM. Like there's, they're quick to the draw to criticize any case of Islamophobia, but when it comes to anti-Semitic behavior and attacks like this, it just seems to be radio silence from them. But what would you expect when it's radio silence from the mayor's office?
Yeah. All right. And this next question, I kind of want to do something a little different. I want you guys to do the talking to each other here, because, we've got two people who understand how a caucus works. You understand the dynamics of it far more than I. And the fact that we're barely even talking about the budget right now, because the drama around floor crossing and people abandoning the Conservative Party is sort of dominating headlines. And on one side, you've got people saying there are more floor crossers to come. On the other side, you have people saying nothing to see here. I'll start with you, Chris. From your vantage point, what's the state of play today in Ottawa?
I mean, it's about as perfect as it could be for the Prime Minister. We're not talking about what I think was a fairly underwhelming budget. I had high hopes when you throw out the term generational, and after everything we've been through over the last, I guess it's November, so at least the last 10 months of this year since President Trump took office, I had high expectations. Perhaps they weren't in a position to bring forward a generational budget because of the lack of certainty from south of the border. But the truth is, if I'm Mark Carney, I'm feeling pretty good right now that what they do best, what the Liberal Party in Ottawa does best is, a shell game. And we're talking about Chris d'Entremont crossing the floor. We're talking about Matt Genereux's resignation. We're not talking about what I think once again should be the fair and open criticisms of what the Liberal government's done and planning for this country. I feel no less certain about the direction our country's headed in, but I know all the talking heads in Ottawa, and here we are talking about this today because it is what's interesting, and it's because can the Carney Liberals avoid the speculation we've talked about the last couple of weeks on this show about going to perhaps an election this fall or early next year for him to get a majority government, or has he managed to do it behind closed doors, outside the caucus rooms and get a couple people to cross the floor and get him those extra key 2 or 3 votes he desperately needed to have a de facto majority government? It looks like he's quite possibly on his way. The Chris d'Entremont from Nova Scotia crossing the floor gets him 1 seat closer. Matt Genereux, claims to, that he's going to continue to vote with the Conservative caucus, though he's not sitting with the Conservative caucus. Yeah. And he's going to resign his seat in the spring. There's a whole lot of question marks over that resignation. But
yeah, I'm gonna cut you off because I want Warren to come in. Warren, when you hear everything from yesterday, some of it's bluster, some of it's smoke and mirrors, some of it might be the unfiltered truth. What does your brain tell you? What do your instincts tell you about what actually was going on over the past few days?
Well, as a citizen, as a voter, I don't like it. I know all of us know the main reason people vote for a particular MP is because of party affiliation. That's what matters the most. That's why people work so hard to get a party nomination. And so, I think if you run as a Tory and you decide to become a Liberal, you should submit yourself to the people so they can decide whether they agree with you or not. And that's the case for d'Entremont. That's the case for Leona Alsalev, who went from the Liberals to the Tories, Atwin, who went from the Greens to Liberals. Like, I understand, I've worked with caucuses. I worked for a prime minister. Everybody's looking to make these acquisitions because they make your life easier. Certainly Mark Carney's life is easier this morning than it was, 72 hours ago. But I don't think it's right. Yeah. I think that those people should have the guts to submit themselves to the people and say, do you approve of what I did? Yeah. And if they say it's okay, well, then it's okay. But my suspicion is, in a couple of these cases, they're not going to be cool with it.
No, I just, listen, I don't know what was in d'Entremont's heart. I don't know what was in his mind. But when he walked into that first caucus meeting in front of people that he had gone to war against, and they were cheering him like the conquering hero, I felt so uncomfortable watching it for him that I couldn't make sense of it for myself. Anyway, lots more to talk about after the break with Warren and Chris, including no pipelines ever in BC, apparently. We'll try to make that make sense. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.